Welcome back to CubeCon. Andy Mangold, Emma Partlow in the booth here. We just got word from production that we cannot stop these players from cubing. They are too excited to swing spells at each other that we are going to have to jump into our round 2 in progress. This is Wan Shi versus Zach playing blue-red artifact aggro, so a very different matchup than we saw before.
Yes.
Let's go down to the table and see how things are shaking up.
Well, we have a Wishing Well, I believe, and a card that something of the Rebellion, I believe, is from Correct Obi-Wan Commander. It's an 2-mana enchantment. Roar of Resistance.
Roar of Resistance. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Catching up here on another. I guess we're breaking Singleton for a while. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're watching the same player again. I'm getting caught up here. Look, we got thrown right into this out of nowhere. Wan Shi's got that wild growth. So just some artifacts in play. Artifact and enchantment on that side. Creature tokens have haste from Roar of Resistance, and this tricky little triggered ability that whenever one or more creatures attack, you can pay 1 and a red and pump all of your attacking creatures by +2/+0. But just some setting up on both players' parts here. Just, you know, dirtling around, finding their land drops, getting their sequencing set up, getting their resources in order. So if this ends up, we know nothing really about Zach's deck other than what we were told by production, which is that it's some sort of artifact aggro deck. If that is the case, I think that we're going to see some similar pressures on Zach's deck that we saw on Emma's deck. Namely, what are you going to do in the face of Titania?
Right.
Are you going to have enough removal in that deck to get rid of that 5/3 generating machine? Because otherwise it's going to be hard for an aggro deck to punch through that without a lot of evasion. Sensor being cycled here. Gave you a chance to walk into it, but you didn't, so I guess I'll just cast in for a card.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing about this is it artifact aggro deck. It'll be interesting to see what kind of curve Zach has established, because as we've identified in the first round with Melissa, having this 1-2-3 curve is really good against the deck that wants to just assemble the right amount of lands to pull Titania.
And here comes a Whirler Rogue. That's going to make 2 Thopter tokens on entering the battlefield. If it resolves, we got some open mana on Wan Shi's side of the table, and we've already seen quite a few 2-mana counterspells, and we're just going to let that get remanded after we crack our Polluted Delta here. So maybe next turn, but
that might get mana leaked, so who knows.
Do you have Whirler Rogue in your Peasant cube?
I do. It's one of my favorite blue cards in the cube.
You know, it's an uncommon, but that card hangs at the absolute highest peaks of power level in my experience.
It's the mythic of common in that I believe it's Kaladesh Aether Revolt.
Absolutely,
it's just brutal, and it goes really well with the blink synergies that are in the cube as well. So you just make this army of Thopters.
Yeah, it plays well aggressively, plays well defensively. Really great to blink, does everything, and kind of an unsuspecting little package sometimes.
Yeah.
So. Little time walk action. Wan Shi demonstrating the power of these 2-mana counterspells in this environment in all these matchups. That was the draw off the remand. Now we see draw for turn after untapping.
So there is a Titania in hand once again. There's also a
what does that card do, Emma?
There's also a Dress Down and also a Dig Through time. So if this game goes long enough, we can try and draw a new hand and get some extra cards.
And we do have a Polluted Delta in the yard, so that Titania is going to do the thing that it's supposed to do. If it's resolved. We do have blue mana out of our opponent. Not sure what kind of free interaction there is in this cube, if any. Let me do a quick little sampling here of the list. I am not spying any free interactions. So
we have no forces.
You're not going to get Force of Will, Force of Negation. You're not going to get Dazed either, it appears. So looks like into a tapped out opponent, you're pretty safe to just drop your big spell if Wan Shi has done their homework.
There's also an Imprisoned in the Moon from Wan Shi as well, which is a really nice blue removal spell that can just stem away this bleeding if Zachary managed to pull some aggression with these artifact creatures.
I think that second, there's 2 lands in hand, I think, on Wan Shi's side of the table. So what I really appreciate here is how deliberate Wan Shi is taking their sequencing. I mean, if it's me, I can't really stop myself from just slamming Titania here, right? I mean,
this is it.
You're going to put 10 power into play. The question I think Wan Shi is asking is, I think we see also a Dress Down.
Yes.
Which is a nice way to answer something like, for example, Whirler Rogue, which is going to come down next turn if you do tap out for Titania. There may be additional counter spells in hand, which also may be considering holding mana up for.
And here comes
but eventually, after much consideration, going to bring that Titania down. Get that Polluted Delta back. I can now make a 5/3 again whenever I want at instant speed. So yeah, maybe now I'll let you have a Whirler Rogue. Go ahead.
Even if Zachary has because obviously Zachary's playing red and blue, so there was going to be some interaction in here, like such as burn, maybe some cheap counter spells. Even if Titania does die, you're still going to get value because you run these fetches. You're still going to get some 5/3s in the process.
This is Titania, Protector of Argoth, too. Sorry for not giving you that full name there, production. We got a new person on the card highlight this round. The other reason to really, I think, play Titania in that window is because you do have an opportunity to bolt Titania, do 3 damage at instant speed, and basically prevent your opponent from getting that token, as long as you do it in response to the end of the battlefield ability.
So here comes the Whirler Rogue once again, making 2 1/1 Thopters. These will get aggressive. That also go with the Roar of Resistance as well.
Yep, so they have haste, so they're just going to get in the red zone here.
Yep.
I got to say that Whirler Rogue looking a lot less scary once you have a Titanium play. It really goes to show the power of a card like Remand, which I think a lot of players that haven't played with that kind of card before or are newer to the game are like, well, this doesn't even do anything. It's just kind of move some cards around.
It goes back to my hand. I can still play
this. It didn't even counter. It's just back in their hand. But the difference between a Whirler Rogue on an empty battlefield versus a Whirler Rogue on a battlefield against Titania and an elemental token is a world of difference. And that's what we're seeing out of that Remand right now. So, again, Wan Chi's deck firing on all cylinders. Also, I think the attack here from Zachary is telling of potentially their strategy.
Yes.
The fact that they are not looking to chump block this 5/3 or Titania with those Thopter tokens and are instead just getting aggressive, perhaps sending a message to Wan Chi, I have burn in my deck. Next turn, I'm going to activate this Roar and just give my Thopters +2/+0 and then swing for 6 in the air, put you on a 2-turn clock. Might just be willing to chump block with a Whirler Rogue, take some damage, and try and race this.
Yep. Another good thing about using these Remands in that window, it slowly feeds that dig through time that you want to delve for.
Yeah. Yeah, if we get to the point of the game where that dig through time matters, I think it's going to be a big difference maker.
Yes. There's also Wanju also has this Besieju who endures in the in his hand, which is really good against this Roar of Resistance. If Zach manages to have an army of artifact tokens, you can stem that bleeding also.
I love the little head shake we got from Zachary there, as if you didn't know this was going to happen. You knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Wan Chi getting in there for 10. Zachary says, you know what? My life total's a resource, and I'm choosing to use half of it right now by not blocking.
It is a beating. Like, you don't really think about Titania, Protector of Argoth in that way, but eventually it's just going to take over the game.
I do. I don't know about you.
I do.
I definitely do.
I'm very aggressive-minded, but often many land players will durdle around and just keep generating this value and then do one big attack.
If you're used to playing with Titania in Commander, for example,
exactly,
there it's a much slower burn. Yeah, I'm definitely the reason I love Titania so much in my own cube is that a lot of 5-drops will kind of drag the game out a little bit. Titania just ends it decisively.
Sure.
Here we see a Deeproot Wayfinder coming down from Wan Chi. Not going to block those Thopters though, so standing to take 6 next turn on board.
Yep.
If Zachary chooses to activate the Roar, I believe you can only activate that once a turn. Let me confirm right now. Otherwise, it would be kind of broken to just dump a bunch of mana into that. So it is a trigger that you get to pay for. So you only get to do that once a turn. But 6 damage on board right now from Zachary, which is almost half of Wan Chi's life total. One little burn spell means you're on a 2-turn clock.
Well, also, Wan Chi has this Besieju who endures as well.
Yes, and it is a when you attack.
Yeah.
You can't do it before attacking. So we could see Zachary go to combat and Wan Chi Besieju that Roar of Resistance, taking away that extra damage output.
Trying to see what else is in Zachary's
can't
hand.
tell.
I think they're blue cards.
Definitely blue cards. Zachary playing it close to the chest, though, quite literally. Not giving us a peek at what those cards are. How much do you expect interaction out of your opponent Wan Chi here if you see 4 or 5 cards in hand, just play a 2-drop past the turn? I think I'm expecting interaction. I'm not sure how that changes my decisions if I'm Zachary. Maybe I, try and cast spells first to see if I'm actually going to get to activate Roar.
Ooh, Shark Typhoon.
Main phase, cycling Shark Typhoon, make a 2/2 flyer. That token will have haste.
Yes.
So if we pretend for a second we don't know about the Besieju, that in combination with Roar and a Roar activation represents 10 total damage if Wan Chi doesn't have any kind of answer here. And obviously, the cycling is really good if you're expecting exactly counter magic because You cannot counterspell that cycling ability. That token just happens unless you have something like a Stifle. So very hard to interact with that Shark as a cycling ability. But I think we're going to see in a moment here that the Roar is actually very easy to interact with if you have Boseiju.
Yes.
And that's going to turn this into a relatively measly attack for 4. Maybe Zachary drew something interesting off the top here.
Yeah.
Back in the tank, it looks like.
He's doing some combat maths.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is not going to come to much because we know about that Boseiju.
Yeah, I don't know how much to read into this, but the fact that Zachary was going to draw an unknown card and chose to tap out of blue instead of leaving blue-red up. Blue-red's still able to activate Roar if you want, but maybe also give you the ability to cast more cards off the top of your deck depending on what you draw. Maybe indicating that burn spells are what he was hoping to draw, perhaps.
Here comes the Boseiju before combat.
Here comes Boseiju, so yeah. And the nice thing about this is that because of the way that that trigger is worded, yes, Zachary can't respond by activating it, but also now knows that it's not there before they have to go to attacks.
Yes.
So that may affect how they choose to actually send their creatures in.
And these Thopters can just chump block these 5/3s.
We have a little bit of time on Zachary's side of the board, but we don't have a lot of pressure anymore now that that Roar is gone. That Roar looks pretty scary. That's a card I have not played with before.
Yeah, it's from one of the Phyrexia Commander precons.
Yeah, great example of one of these supplemental cards that maybe you've not seen because you're not playing it retail limited, you're not seeing it in standard or whatever, but looking pretty terrifying, honestly, in this deck.
Especially in a strategy that's just full of like cheap artifact tokens and just wants to go as wide as possible.
All basic mana base out of Zachary so far, at least that we've seen.
Yeah.
Which
seems to be working.
Definitely interesting. I mean, this is a cube where there is more than the average amount of fixing available, but we saw Melissa not prioritize fixing super highly. Zachary won the first round here on the winner's side of round 2. And so far, as far as we've seen in this game, just basics in the mana base.
Ooh, so there's an Urza in hand.
Urza.
Like High Lord Artificer.
Yeah. What does that do in this board state? I mean, it gives you a big token.
It makes you a big construct, and it turns those constructs into blue mana sources.
Yeah, it looks like Zachary trying to go to combat here. Okay, just getting in for 1. So I'm gonna chip away your life total, but now clearly sending the message that I intend to chump block these 5/3s because I done used my life total as a resource, and I ain't got much resource left.
And blue-red's not known for life gain either, so you need to be really conservative with your life total going forward.
Dress down, dig through time. Torrential Gearhulk now. I think that was the draw off the top. Pretty good with dig through time, I hear.
I've heard that too.
To flashback an 8-mana instant.
Big if true.
We do, what instance do we have in the yard? We do have the Remand in the yard still from earlier in the game, so should Zachary present something game-altering, that could be answered with a 5/3 and remanding it back to your hand. We got enough mana to do that. Now, interestingly, we're not just threatening to chump here, we're actually threatening to trade. So if Wan Shi sends with Nissa and the Elemental token, we could see Nissa get traded for with Shark and a Thopter, Whirlorogue and a Thopter, Shark and a Whirlorogue if you wanted to. Can't imagine why you do that. So you may just be sending with the Elemental token, or it looks like in this case, Elemental token and a Deeproot Wayfinder. No good blocks on the Wayfinder, but certainly not as intimidating and terrifying as the...
Also, we have the Urza's Battle Thopter.
Here's a block, baby. This is Urza's Battle Thopter coming in at instant speed here.
I think it's Urza. It's Urza something.
It's Battle Thopter. You got it.
Okay. It's too many cards these days.
There's a lot of cards, but you're doing a great job at recognizing. I'm glad I'm in the booth with you. You know, I think, more cards than I do, so it's... I'm sorry. Yeah, Liberator. Urza's Battle Thopter.
Sure.
It's Urza's Battle Thopter, but it's got a proper
2 out
name.
Of 3 ain't
and
bad.
that name is Liberator.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That is still not a great block, though. It's a 1/2 at instant speed. Doesn't really change the blocking math a whole lot. It's not, you know, the ambush that it potentially could be.
It's not. You don't play it as an aggressive option. You play it as, hey, I just want to give all my artifact creatures and all my artifact spells flash.
It can definitely scale out of control. It does get bigger as you cast colorless spells, or I'm sorry, any spell mana greater than Liberator. So if you cast big spells, you're just going to grow this thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Lining up these blocks here, though. These blocks don't feel good. These are desperate blocks, not happy blocks.
Yeah.
We did manage to keep the Nissa herself at bay, which does mean that you have more flexibility in blocking here. If that Nissa had been sent as well, you would not have the option to make this block because you would just be dead to those 2 elementals, the 2 5/3s. Are we going to see a chump block?
Seen a lot
Looks
of
like
blocking
looks
here.
like we're just going to, for sure, 100% get rid of this Deep Root Wayfinder. I don't care if you have combat tricks. I don't care if you have removal spells. I'm getting rid of this thing because I can't afford to let you get back another land and make another 5/3.
Yeah.
Not often you see a quad block. I feel
it's very unusual.
I feel like rare in the wild do you see a quad block. Yeah, we have a quad block here on this Deep Root Wayfinder.
That would
this
not be on
lowly
my
2/3.
that would not be on my CubeCon bingo card. That's for sure.
All right, how do you order damage here? You taking out Liberator? You taking out Whirler Rogue? Looks like Liberator is the choice.
Liberator is the one that could potentially get scary. Whirler Rogue's already done the thing by creating the Thopters upon
Yeah, in
entering
some
the
sense, you
battlefield.
might not even want to put Whirler Rogue in the yard because it's maybe more likely to be able to be recurred from there somehow.
it.
Though in blue-red, I guess you're probably more likely to flicker it or something than to get it back from the graveyard. All right, so swing, puts you to 5, pass the turn. We've got Torrential Gearhulk up yet again. This curve of early interaction into Titania, into Torrential Gearhulk has been winning games for Wan Shi all day.
It's pretty effective.
Urza in hand, that's going to make
Yeah,
a 1, 2, 3, 4. A 4/4 construct is not going to turn the tides of this game.
I don't think this is going to be resolved. I think it's going to get remanded.
No, it's not.
the
It's not going
Gearhulk,
to get resolved. I don't think.
which is a shame because it's a really good. I think it's a good card in this situation. Yes, it's not enough, but it just allows Zach to stabilize by just making these tokens.
It would be a good card. We also could just see a dress down here, to be honest.
True.
That's a cheaper way to deal with this. If you're worried about the construct, but you maybe want to reserve your Torrential Gearhulk for something more elaborate, more scary, you could potentially.
And it depends how much you want to play this dig through time as well, I guess. You just want to feed that graveyard. Oh, here comes the Gearhulk.
Here comes the Gearhulk.
Flashing back remand.
I believe that is the only option. That's certainly the option I would expect Wan Shi to choose. Let me read that card again. It's been a while since Kaladesh Standard. Let me see what this card does.
Yeah.
And there's the remand.
And yep. Bounce it back. Draw a card for your troubles.
Now, interestingly, if Zachary had tapped mana differently, they would have the option of immediately redeploying Urza here. They do have 8 mana. They just chose to spend 3 of their 4 blue on the first casting of Urza.
Right.
Now, obviously, may not have been thinking about playing around exactly remand, given their opponent already cast it. And we do see other blue cards in hand. I got to wonder why we didn't see blue, blue, red, red to cast that Urza.
For sure.
Zachary doing that thing that I've done so many times in a game of Magic, which is read all my cards and say, do any of you do anything that helps me here?
And then you put it down and then you look at it again, hoping it's a different card to get you out of the situation.
Yeah, just, you know.
I did that a few times. I'm like, is this card different? Nope, still the basic land that I can't do anything with.
Now, Zachary is playing red. We don't know how much burn is in Zachary's deck. This cube does have Fire Blast in it.
Okay.
Which you might not expect because it's kind of got a powerful pedigree that some of these more synergistic cards don't have. But it is a lands matter cube, and sacrificing lands does
for sure
matter.
That makes sense.
But
you
it's not out of the question that we could see, you know, get in with my flyers, burn spell, Fire Blast. Like that is a way this game could potentially be stolen if you're in Wan Shi's shoes and don't know what's in Zachary's hand, aside from the Urza, which we just saw get remanded. But I'm certainly thinking there's red cards in Zachary's hand if I'm Wan Shi because of the way he tapped, or the way they tapped.
Yeah.
But we happen to know in the booth that that is actually not the case, that we tapped out all of our blue even though we had another blue spell in hand.
Yeah.
So.
Trying to see what else is in hand. See a dig through time. I see a dress down. Think I see a treetop village maybe?
Yep, that's Treetop Village for sure. I do love the deliberate play we're seeing out of Wan Shi.
Yes.
I mean, I think this kind of play is really rewarded by a deck like this. You got to use your answers at the right moments, and I think Wan Shi's making it look easy, but this kind of piloting a deck like this against the pressure from decks like Melissa's and decks like Zachary's is not easy. That is imprisoned in the moon on the Whirler Rogue. Whirler Rogue also offering one other way this game could potentially be cheesed out, which is somehow make a haste creature that is giant, and then Whirler Rogue threatens to make it unblockable. That is a way this game could potentially be lost, now forcing you to do an awful lot of chump blocking.
Do some bad blocks.
I mean, dead on board,
Oh.
because we have 2 blockers for 3 5-powered attackers.
What are we doing here?
Something in hand. Looks like a delve spell, perhaps. Oh, we're just desperation sacrificing the wishing well. I mean, you got to do it, right? Ooh, that's Mountain Island. I believe that's going to be game.
Don't think that's going to do it.
I mean, I respected Zachary. Read all your cards again. I would do exactly the same thing. Chump block,
we've all been there.
Take 5. Oh, check my dice. Oh, I'm dead. Let's go to game 2.
He's just realized.
Zachary, one low. We've all been there. I've done that so many times.
Yep.
All right, so Wanshi continuing to put on a clinic here with this Sultai Brew, mostly blue-green. We've seen a little bit of black.
There's a tiny bit of black, but
I mean, so far, is it really just for that we've seen activating those creature lands? The Restless Cottage, I believe, is the black-green creature land?
I believe that's it. Even then, that's fine, right? Because
yeah, I mean, those kinds of splashes are safe here.
We talked about Treetop Village at the start of the broadcast and how important that will be. And sometimes you just need a man land just to chip away the last few points of damage on an empty board state.
And Wanshi does have Tatyova, Steward of Tides, in their deck, and that is also just better with those creature lands like Restless Cottage. So another reason maybe to splash that if you just happen to get those black fixing lands. Yeah, play the Restless Cottage. Why not? So our players are going to sideboards. We got an ad to read now for another great sponsor of CubeCon.
Yep, so we have another sponsor in Magic Online.
What's that, Emma?
You don't. Oh yeah, you don't play Magic Online. You don't actually play Magic Online. So Magic Online is probably one of the best ways and the most accessible ways to play Cube right now. Obviously, we have the Vintage Cube, which is up 4 or 5 times a year. One of the best ways to play Magic, and it's just also just a really good way to play Magic, where you can play Cube, you can play Modern, you can play Commander. There's a bunch of competitive events. You can qualify for the Pro Tour through these events as well, which is great.
Qualify for the Pro Tour.
From the comfort of your own home.
From the comfort of your own home.
So yeah, big thank you to Magic Online, especially Daybreak Games, who have taken over Magic Online over the last year, who have done an amazing effort to update the Vintage Cube. They've made like 120 or so changes in the last 6 months, and as a result, that Vintage Cube is the best iteration of it so far.
There you go. I think right now you said Frank Lepore's Horror Cube is up there on Magic Online?
So Frank Lepore's Horror Cube is up right now because we're in the middle of Halloween.
Oh, spooky season.
It's spooky season, so it makes sense.
Spoopy.
David McDarby agrees.
Oh, we've scared David McDarby off camera.
So there's a Spooky Cube going up right now. I believe it's up for a few weeks. So if you're into all the Innistrad sets, they're all in there. So
yeah, check out mtgo.com if you somehow don't know about Magic Online and you're watching this stream, in which case, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah, sign up.
Come on, play Magic Online. So, sideboard options. What do you want to see out of your sideboard if you are the blue-red aggressive deck trying to deal with Titania, Torrential Gearhulk, a suite of 2-mana counter magic? How do you combat this?
I just want quick, aggressive, small creatures, maybe some cheap.
Love that.
Maybe some cheap counter spells. I know there wasn't a Spell Pierce because that was already taken, but things like that would do really well in the early turns, just to counter, these threats that just take over in the late game.
Yeah, I'm really struck by how different the decks in this pod feel than the decks that were in the pod I drafted this cube in this morning. I drafted this exact same cube with 8 different people, or 7 different people, and me this morning, and the decks felt totally different from the decks we're seeing highlighted on coverage right now, which I think is a testament to a great cube with a lot of range. There's a lot of things this cube is capable of, and what wasn't successful in my pod this morning seems to be working out really well here for Wanshi.
Right. So
maybe the counter spell's better than it first seemed from my pod this morning, because put on a clinic right now. I think you're right. I think aggression is going to be the key, especially in this game when you're on the play.
Right.
Really seize the day when you have that first land drop.
You want to be aggressive, but you want to back up that aggression with disruption. So cheap counter spells would be ideal. I don't know what Zachary drafted besides what we've already seen on coverage. But given that, there's these counter spells and removal and interaction, you just need to delay that to the point where you can just, keep hammering away at the life totals and chipping away with these Fopters and trying to push through as much damage as possible before this Titania comes down once again and will take over the game, which it has done in the last 3, let's be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, from what we've seen, it doesn't really seem like many decks are going to be able to go bigger than Wanshi's
Right,
deck.
This is it.
So I think almost everybody's plan against Wanshi is going to have to be somehow getting under, because Titania, Torrential Gearhulk, Dig Through Time, Control Magic.
The longer the game goes, the lands player is just going to win.
There's also all this selection we see on Wanshi's side of the table. We have the search for Azcanta. We have ways to find the cards we want. So if given time to set up, it's going to be really hard to compete with that late game value engine and those big, big spells out of Wanshi's deck. So can we get under them? Can we counter the key ones? Do we have Lightning Bolt for Titania? Is Lightning Bolt even in the cube? I'm not sure. But that's what you're looking for if you're Zachary, I think, in this matchup. Boy, it's a good deck Wanshi drafted.
It's a really good deck.
Good deck, and being played really, really well. Like I said, I think I'm seeing a lot of deliberation and care with
a
the
lot
sequencing.
there's a lot of patience going on, which is very important for what essentially you're playing a control deck.
Far more patience than I have. You know, I think
yeah.
we've seen a lot of times, you know, Wanshi have a line that feels, you know, obvious for me.
Yeah.
But Wanshi then thinks about that line and also all the other lines. Even if they end up going back and actually taking that first line that seemed more obvious to us in the booth, having thought about those other lines is a testament to a good control player, somebody who's being really careful with their sequencing.
Playing controlled in a cube is really difficult, especially when you're playing different kind of cubes at CubeCon. You may not know what you're playing against, and yeah, like game one, you'd be like, oh, cool, like there's this card that's going to snowball. I need to think about this next time.
Yeah, I think control is uniquely difficult in singleton drafted environments like Cube because, you know, constructed, there's a lot of heuristics. You will know the meta, you'll know the matchups, you'll know the spells that matter in a given matchup, so you'll know exactly where and how you need to use your counter spells. Every time something's put on the stack by Zachary, Wanshi has to ask the question, from base principles, do I need to counter this spell, or is there something more scary I need to be worried about? Just looking at mulligan decisions now, looks like we have 2 keeps, though Wanshi did gesture expressively in their chair. Not sure if that was cheering or jeering. Island go from Zachary Batista. Mountain into
Steel
Overseer.
This is a really nice one for the Is It Artifact deck, especially when you can get those Fopters out with the Whirler Rogue. You can just start putting counters on your flyers and just continually chipping away through evasion.
The one thing we haven't seen a ton of out of Wanshi's deck is answers to resolved threats.
Yes.
A lot of stack interaction. In terms of answers to resolved threats, we have Prison in the Moon, we have Control Magic.
And this is why he has to be so deliberate, right? Because he can't deal with them the second they enter play. So he has to think, do I counter this now because I can't remove it once it enters play?
Yeah, so now
there's an extra layer of I really need to respect this threat and think about it.
Yeah, so now Wanshi's in the position of needing to either find one of the few and relatively inefficient answers for resolve threat in their deck list to Steel Overseer, or stop Zachary from playing anything that will really pop off with that Overseer. In hand, we see, it looks like Evasive Action, Fiery Islet. So we do have an efficient counterspell here.
Very nice.
Relatively efficient.
Really nice for the aggro deck. You can just cash it in for a card draw once you're starting to float out a little bit and you just need those last few points of damage. Draw into something more worthwhile.
Island go, and if I'm Zachary, I'm like, well, what spell can I afford to have countered? Because that seems like it might happen here. I see Liberator, or just Battlethopter.
I think I see Memory Lapse as well. Is that Memory Lapse?
I can't tell. We do have
no, it's not Memory Lapse.
That's Evasive Action.
Okay.
Which is the domain counterspell.
We got Urza's Battlethopter.
Yeah, Liberator is quite good in this spot, I would say, because instant speed threats are good against opponents that are playing a lot of counter magic, because you can essentially double threat, like the double spell. You can cast something on their end step and give them the option of countering this now, thus being tapped out for my turn I'm about to take.
Yeah.
Or just, let it happen.
Oh, we have a Terra Sunder.
Look at that. Well, that's an answer we haven't even seen yet out of Wanshi's deck.
So that's probably part of the reason why they're splashing black as well for the kicker.
A deep bag of tricks from Wanshi here. Just going to exile that Steel Overseer.
Terra Sunder is like one of the better artifact removal spells because, as you just mentioned, it just exiles. It just deals with the threat cleanly and effectively.
Is that not a Fiery Islet? Why is there a dice on that land?
I'm not quite sure.
I thought it was a Fiery Islet. Now I'm not so sure.
It is a Fiery Islet. That is definitely a Fiery Islet. I don't know why it has a counter on it. Maybe it's just to signify that they have to pay life for it. I don't know.
Wild Growth. Go. Here comes Liberator.
Here comes the Battlethopter.
We do have 2 mana up. Ponder in hand for Wanshi. Chose not to cast it last turn. Thus, even though we can't see the rest of their hand, probably got some instant speed answers in there.
Yeah.
Be it Dress Downs.
There's a Spell Pierce in hand.
Spell Pierce looks
Spell Pierce looks really nice here.
Spell Pierce seems a lot better in this matchup than it did against Melissa, for sure. If that is a Fiery Islet, we should also be at 19. I'm going to check the lands in this cube real quick.
You do have the Horizon lands in this cube.
There's nothing else it could be except for... no, it's got to be Fiery Islet.
It's definitely... It's 100% Fiery Islet.
Yeah, there's the 19, so that's where we're at. Not sure where the dice is there.
Yep.
I'm going to not get distracted by it anymore. Okay, just a reminder for the player, it looks like, coming in from production.
Sure.
Three mana here.
Gonna play
Arcbound.
Mouser,
I believe is what it is. That's the red modular creature.
Yeah, from Modern Horizons, I want to say.
Let's confirm. Arcbound Tracker is what
Oh.
that is.
You were
Yeah,
close.
so that is the modular card. It is from Modern Horizons. It's just got the wrong name. You know, card names are hard. That's going to be a 2/2 with Menace. That is also going to grow as Zachary double spells, which they're going to do immediately.
And we got this Wishing Well as well. It's a shame that Steel Overseer didn't stick around because
Steel Overseer looking really, really good right now.
Yeah.
So a really well-placed Terra Sunder. Wan Shi had a chance to Spell Pierce the Wishing Well, but saving that answer for something a little bigger and badder. Getting it for 2 with Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. The clock is here. We've got an imposing board that now Wan Shi's in the back foot and has to answer. Not as comfortable as previous games.
Yeah. And this is the key thing. You just want to put them on the back foot as much as possible, early as possible.
So we know one of the cards in hand is Evasive Action for Zachary, which is just going to be a counter unless your opponent pays 2, which is okay in this situation.
So we have a Remand, I believe a Dig Through Time, and I want to say
Forest.
a Forest.
Yeah, Remand, Forest, Dig Through Time. Pretty good top 3. I'd keep it.
Yeah?
Personally. Looks like Wan Shi agrees and also keeps him in the exact same order. That is Roadside Reliquary, I believe, the colorless land that does some other stuff. And here comes Blossoming Tortoise. This is all right, but if Zachary can double spell next turn, it's going to grow that Arcbound Tracker out of trading range with the Blossoming Tortoise. And even if it does trade with the Blossoming Tortoise, all those counters can be modulated onto Urza's Battlethopter,
right?
Which is the evasive creature in play, which that is maybe one of the very few holes in Wan Shi's deck. Not many flyers.
For a green deck, there isn't much reach.
That's true. I haven't seen any reach, I don't think, in the main deck at least. So maybe growing this Battlethopter, the resolved threat that got through the counter magic, maybe figuring out a way to make this nice. That's an Ogre Head Helm drawn off the top by Zachary. Looking pretty good as the hand gets empty here. If we can actually connect with that Ogre Head Helm after emptying our hand. Taking damage from the Fiery Islet.
Yep.
This is that enchantment that you can enchant a clue or a permanent. It basically turns the thing into a clue.
And it has split second as well, so...
Yeah, split second, one of the most frustrating mechanics to play against. Oh, you thought you could do something about it, which in this case, Wan Shi wouldn't, but...
It's turning a turtle into a clue.
Yes, opting to do that. And the Ogre Head Helm is going to be the second spell here, which is going to grow the Arcbound Tracker.
And slowly just growing a board and just adding some power and just getting aggressive.
Yeah, not even that slowly. I mean, we're going to take 6 this turn.
Yeah.
And then down to 1 card in hand. That 1 card is evasive action, which we are tapped out of, so not going to be useful on this next turn cycle. But if we can untap, maybe get in with that Ogre Head Helm, use that evasive action to protect something, it's just going to be draw 3, and that's going to be quite good. Now, it's worth noting, Wan Shi does have Titania in hand.
Yep.
That's going to be good. It's happened
Very
again.
good.
Everybody, it's happened again. But the answers that Wan Shi has in their deck, though relatively few for resolved threats, are really good against Arcbound creatures.
Yes.
Prison in the Moon. Control Magic. These are not going to be just Doom Blades that mean you can move those counters around. These are going to be ways to get those creatures back. Or we just make 2 5/3s, you know?
Yes.
And this is where I think the Battlethopter is becoming... I mean, I tell you what, I really think Zachary is going to wish they were not tapped out of their evasive action right now. Although, yeah, actually, the evasive action wouldn't have worked because it would have been just counter unless you pay 2. And with that Wild Growth Island, Wan Shi could have just paid 2 for Titania. So, wouldn't have really helped in this case anyway. Going to get a Elemental whenever they want.
Yeah.
From that Misty Rainforest that got recurred.
Also, you want to save some mana so you can cash in this clue that was your Blossoming Turtle as well. Do you want a little more card draw?
Now, we can reconfigure the Ogre Head Helm onto the Battlethopter and pretty safely connect, if that's what we decide to do. This is a pivotal turn here. I think our players are being very careful about their game actions because right now the game is, I think, leaning in Wan Shi's favor, but with one thing gone wrong, one slight difference, this could turn very quickly. And Zachary has a fast clock, so Zachary's got to find a way to sort of punch through these defenses and get the advantage again, just long enough to deal 11.
Yes.
You don't have to get the advantage and maintain it forever. You just got to count to 11 at this point.
Count to 11 and make sure this Titania just doesn't dominate the game once again, as we've seen throughout this broadcast.
Going to go ahead and read the rules text on Restless Cottage there. That other colorless land there is Roadside Reliquary, which can be cashed in for some cards if you control an artifact and an enchantment, which Wanshi does not at the moment. Okay, we see the overhead helm not put on the Battlethopter, but instead put on... Well, here's why. Because when you equip creature deals combat damage, you can sacrifice the creature. You don't want to sacrifice the Battlethopter. You want to sacrifice the
thing
tracker,
with the counters to put it onto the Battlethopter.
The tracker to put it onto the Thopter. So either way, we're getting those counters on the Thopter this turn.
We're kind of outbound ravaging onto a big threat, sort of, by just transferring these counters onto one big thing.
And by attacking like this, either it hits and I get all those counters on my Thopter and I draw 3, or you're going to trade with it in combat. I'm going to get rid of one of your threats, and I'm going to get my counters back on my
Zachary's
Thopter.
like, cool, you can make all these 5/3 elementals, but they don't have reach, and I can eventually kill you with this big Battlethopter that will have a bunch of tokens.
Oh, I'm sorry. Look, there is a Wild Growth there, so I lied. Roadside Reliquary was online. I missed that Wild Growth in the land stack over there. So we do see that cash in for a card, which, importantly, is also cash in for another 5/3 right now. Double block. This Ogre Head Helm actually does give +2/+2, so that was actually a 6/6. So that was actually not even threatening to trade with the 5/3. That was just threatening to eat it in combat. Now all those counters are going to bounce over to that Battlethopter. Now a 6/7 in the air.
Does it like one she drew a Besiege You as well, you endures, which is going to deal with that Battlethopter at some point. Or deal with this aura that's attached to this Blossoming Taurus.
Does Besiege deal with that? I thought it was non-creature. Or is there artifact?
Oh, it's non-creature. Yeah, my bad.
I think it's non-creature. So I think.
Yeah, my bad.
The helm, if the helm is reconfigured,
yes,
then that can be Besieged. But as long as it's in play as a creature, then it's safe, and the Battlethopter is safe. Oh no, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. So I think you're right. We can actually do that. Magic cards are complicated, folks.
Don't do our job.
Yeah, artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. So
Sure.
it can, in fact, destroy artifact creatures. I got to think if you're Zachary, you're actually not too upset about trading with both of those elementals last turn.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that was a choice Wanshi made, and you should never be happy when your opponent makes a choice, because you don't know what's in their hand. They're working with more information than you are.
For sure.
But
Definitely.
It feels like there's a glimmer of hope here. Opponent's at 8. You have 6 power flying in the air that is going to demand some sort of answer to an in-play threat, which, again, Wanshi doesn't have as much of as a deck of different colors might.
So, Imprisoned in the Moon's the only thing I could think of that can deal with this card. We saw
Control Magic.
Control Magic's another good one. We saw the Terra Sunder in the early turn, so that's already been used. Unless there's like unless there's a Torrential Gearhulk in hand where you can flash back that Terra Sunder, that could also work.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. There are outs. Granted, there aren't as many as I'm sure that he would like right now.
But showcasing that same deliberate play that we have come to know Wanshi for over these last 2 rounds. Zach really wants to do a game 3 here, though.
Yes.
Zachary wants to see a game 3.
I want to see a game 3. I don't know about you.
We all want to see a game 3. This is some great magic we're seeing here. Here comes the Ranger class, I believe.
Yes, it is a Ranger's class. Like a 2/2 Wolf.
No, actually, that's slightly different. That's a different art. That's a different saga. Or is there a different printing of Ranger class?
Is it Druid class, maybe? It's definitely one of the level up enchantments.
It is Druid class. Yeah, the art is pretty similar. That's going to gain life on landfall. And also let you play additional lands per turn. And eventually, if you level it all the way up, make lands you control into creatures. So, Waterlogged Grove in play, right?
Yes.
So that means that we have another 5/3 waiting in the wings here.
And another card to draw, so he's just slowly trying to find these answers while just making these 5/3s.
And now Wanshi just getting him with Titania. You're not going to block with the 2/2 and can't block that 6/7 in the air.
Yeah.
Still, I think on some precarious ground here with that 6/7 flyer, which we can reconfigure the Ogre Head Helm and make that into 8 power of flying. meaning that 1 life gain off of the Druid class last turn was essential to not have this be a potentially lethal attack, assuming that Wang Shi has no instant speed interaction.
Depends what else Zachary has in hand right now, which doesn't seem a lot.
Gut shot 1 time.
I don't think that was in the cube, unfortunately.
Probably not, no. All right, so here we come. We are swinging in with an 8-9.
Here comes the Besiege.
And now that the overhead helm is... Oh, right, no, I forgot. We
yeah, like,
read that card and
fine.
reread it.
Yeah, it's fine
you
without
just do it the whole time. That's right. Man, this is such a hard job we're doing here. Now it seems like Wang Shi is in a pretty commanding position.
Right.
Titania's live. Waterlog Grove represents another 5-3. Your opponent's at 12. They've got a single 2-2. Couple mana to work with, but...
Once again, this Titania is just going to take over the game.
Going to have to do some miracles. So Titania continuing to prove to be a big problem. I had a player that drafted my cube last round come up to me and show me their deck, which was a landfall Titania deck, lots of fetch lands.
Sure.
Asked me how I thought they did. The deck looked really good to me. I guessed 2-1 or 3-0, and they 0-3'd.
Oh, wow, okay.
Shows you the difference of what different environments are. You know, in the Bun Magic Cube, there's a lot of more cheap removal.
Yes.
So I think Titania is a lot less likely to stick around like it is in this cube for so many turns, just taking over the game. What are the cards we have from Zachary there? Still evasive action just sitting in the hand.
Yeah, just...
Guess what you can't evasive action? Beseiju. That's being channeled. And again, it would only be for 2, so even if you could do it, it wouldn't help at this point. 1 mana. That's Bind the Monster. That's going to tap down
Titania?
Titania.
Titania will still be able to make those tokens.
Not going to get rid of the abilities, though.
No,
so
just can't attack.
You can see it in Zachary's body language that they're not happy about having to do that, but this is Magic. You play to your outs. Even if it feels awful to bind the monster Titania, if that's your out, you got to play to it.
Yeah.
And what's more, you're taking 5 from casting that Bind the Monster, because it does deal damage equal to its power. So you're essentially taking 1 more attack.
But now here comes the dig through time.
Are there any good cards in the top 7 cards of my library, says Wan Shi.
Well, there's a dress down. That could
I
be
suspect maybe yes. There are some good cards hiding around there.
It's quite a lot of cards to look through when it's a limited format. Dress down might be good here as well.
The one thing that's interesting to me is that we see this
it's a lot of lands.
dig through time, which, unless there's a mana floating... Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's still a cottage over there. It's still a cottage. So we are also still able to make another elemental this turn with the Waterlog Grove. It's got to feel pretty bad if you're already behind and your opponent resolves a dig through time.
That's how it feels like when I'm against the dig through time. You feel behind the second they cast it, just because the amount of value you can get off that card is just way too good.
Here comes yet another elemental. I believe another game where Titania has made at least 20 power. We saw it trade with 2 elementals earlier with that large Arcbound tracker.
Yes.
So 20 power from 1 card.
It's pretty impressive.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Especially when you're able to ramp it out so early thanks to that wild growth.
A full grip, a clue in play. Titania's abilities are still relevant, even though she's tapped out indefinitely. 5 power in play. At this point, I mean, Zachary probably still can't even jump block. You got to hope that you somehow draw something with haste and you can pull some miracle off.
I think the writing is slowly on the wall. Just trying to see what else is in Wan Shi's hand.
Oh, we have a removal spell for that even. That's a green spell. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Some sort of fight spell, maybe? That is Spider Food. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying, and create a food token. So just gain a little life.
Yeah.
Just in case there was any chance you might somehow cheese me out from this position.
With a big, there might be a big red hasty creature that can deal 4
I got
or
no
5.
idea. I don't know.
A Glorybringer style effect, maybe.
Maybe you play Ginger Brood and an Embercleave and a Fire Blast. I don't know what combination of cards is going to get you
that
out
would
of here.
be great for coverage reasons. Ginger Brood holding an Embercleave sounds great to me.
Yeah, that's what Magic's all about.
Right.
A gingerbread man holding a mythic sword of unspeakable power.
Right.
getting in for 5, putting you down to 2.
2.
Got to be a pretty good draw off the top here from Zachary.
And with now Zachary's on 2, it's turning off this Fiery Islet as well. So he's only got 4 lands to work with.
That is true. You get 1 more activation of it if you want, but
if you want to play dangerous.
probably more likely to just cash it in for a card, if anything. That's Urza off the top. Not a bad Magic card,
Doesn't
but
do a lot in this situation, unfortunately.
it buys you a little time, assuming none of those cards in Wan Chi's hand are counterspells, which I think is actually very unlikely.
Sure.
We just resolved Dig Through Time. We've got blue mana up. You've seen multiple counterspells out of this deck.
There's a Shark Typhoon.
There's a Shark Typhoon.
That might do something.
This is the kind of card that if there wasn't a food token floating around here, might be the kind of card that maybe in some miracle world could potentially steal a game.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening.
And
I think we're probably shopping around for which 2-mana counterspell we're going to use. We're going to use the Lose Focus.
And there we
Zachary's
go.
going to scoop it up. Well played by Zachary, but Wan Chi, again, showing us the power of this deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw some more of the deck in this game, certainly.
Yes.
The Terra Sunder was a removal spell. It feels like Wan Chi just always has the answer they need
Right.
at every given point. It's like, oh, you have a non-creature thing. Let me get my Terra Sunder. You have this artifact. I've got my Boseiju. Just always has the answer at the right moment, which is the sign of a great control deck.
It's also, they have the right answer at the right moment, but they're also deciding which one to use, which spell to use for the particular threat, right? It's not just snapping off using random spells. They're being meticulous about it and thinking, cool, if I use this on this, it allows me for this other spell to do this other thing. And it's just really well thought out. Like, they're playing really, really well. They're being very meticulous. And you can tell they're a control player.
Yeah, and, you know, Titania, a really powerful card, not often seen as a win condition in a control deck.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that is allowed by this sort of cube that has a lot of synergies and a lot of overlapping cards that interact with each other in this sort of ways. That land package is allowing this to be a win condition in a control deck in a way that's really dynamic.
And it's really hard to interact with lands in this cube as well. There's no land destruction. There
actually is some land destruction floating around. There's a wasteland, there's a pillage, there's a couple land destruction
There's a
spells floating
wildfire
around.
as well, but
there's more than the average cube, but still on average, lands are very difficult to interact with.
Sure.
And so once you got Titania, if you can protect it, your lands are going to do their thing no matter what. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to be back with the finals. We're going to see if Wan Chi can go the distance here and show us that this Sultai control deck is the real business.
And will we see Titania again?
If we don't, I'd be shocked. I think we've seen it pretty much every game.
And it's won every game.
The power of card selection, folks. That's why you play Ponder, so you can play Titania every game.
Right.
We'll see you back in a few minutes here at CubeCon.